Center Grove Trojan Beat.
And welcome to this next in our line of the Center Grove Trojan Beat here and Inside the Lines. I'm Chris Wood with my colleague Adam Ross, and I'm very excited today to have with us the new head boys basketball coach for Center Grove, Trent Moorhead. Coach, welcome today, and thanks for joining us.
I very much appreciate the invitation to come on the podcast. I'm excited to be talking with you guys here this afternoon.
So, Coach, kind of letting you know, our focus on the Trojan Beat is to just kind of tell the stories of people from the Center Grove community. Obviously, I'm guessing you are quickly getting acclimated to the community. So kind of talk to us real quick about that whirlwind experience that you've had in leaving your previous job and probably overlapping there a little bit and now transitioning into your new life, both off the court and on the court with Center Grove.
Yeah, absolutely. Whirlwind is a great way to put it, but it's all been awesome. Like, it's been a really cool experience. It really all happened kind of mid to late April. So when I was finally announced, I think it was April 20th when I officially became announced as the head coach. From then on, I've really just tried to hit the ground running and try to get, my hands in as many possible avenues that I can in terms of the basketball program. So it was really important to me to get over and meet the team there at the end of April, get our spring calendar in line. I was fortunate to have, end of the day prep at Hauser, and it was about a 50-minute drive, so I could leave. My principal gave me permission there where I could leave right at the end of the day to get over to Center Grove to run some spring workouts. So we got about 3 weeks worth of spring workouts in. I think that really helped our transition into June. So we had some familiarity already as we rolled into summer basketball. And then I was really adamant on getting into the middle schools. So I was able to have, speeches with each middle school, 7th and 8th grade boys basketball team, and run some middle school open gyms in the spring as well. So just trying to, like I mentioned, hit the ground running, get as much going as possible in the spring. Got to meet all the administrators at the middle schools and high school levels. And it was a whirlwind, but it was all so positive. I felt like, really felt good each time leaving the building about the people and the environment, the atmosphere, and just made me more excited each time I was in the building. So that's transitioned us into summer basketball, which we're in moratorium week now. So I feel like the last 2 days have really been the first 2 days I can kind of catch my breath. And with that, tomorrow, my wife and I will close on our house here in Greenwood. So we're in a transition process with moving. We sold our house in Shelbyville. We moved over to Greenwood, had a little bit of a gap between when we get the keys to our new house. So we've been here in a townhome the last few weeks. So just about as much as you could cram into a month. I feel like that's what we've done. But that's part of the coaching life, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Coach, kind of first take us back to your days. I mean, you grew up in Indiana, kind of talk about where in Indiana you're from, kind of the high school, college experience briefly, and what ultimately kind of inspired you to be a basketball coach.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from Southeast Indiana. I spent pretty much all my schooling experience, kindergarten through my junior year of high school. I was in the South Dearborn Community School Corporation. So both of my parents started their careers there. My dad was a math teacher, and he was a varsity boys basketball coach at South Dearborn. By the time I became a high schooler, he was the high school principal there. My mom started as a chemistry teacher. By the time I became a high school student, she was in the guidance department. So, my family has a background in education. I'm the 10th member of my family to go into public education. So I've kind of been immersed in that teaching, coaching culture pretty much my whole life. And, I've always enjoyed being around it. All the way through my junior year at South Dearborn. My senior year, my dad became the superintendent at South Ripley High School. So I ended up finishing out at South Ripley and graduating from there. In Versailles, a neighboring community. But both of my grandparents worked at South Ripley High School. My grandfather, Gus Moorhead, was the first head coach in South Ripley basketball history. They consolidated. He was previously the coach at Versailles High School. He's an Indiana Basketball Hall of Famer. Had a great career as a player at Madison High School and then at Hanover College. So with Dad being a previous head coach, with my grandfather being a previous head coach, it just kind of I was just so involved in that atmosphere, and kind of always enjoyed hearing the stories of my dad's teams, my grandfather's teams. And then when you couple that with just being around a school building all the time, my days as an elementary school student would be, I would wrap up school, I would walk over to the high school, I'd set my bag down in mom or dad's office, and then depending on what season it was, that's what court or field I was going to, for practice. If it was in the fall, I'd put my bag down, I'd walk down the hill and go to a varsity football practice. And I'd do whatever I could on the sidelines to help out as a youngster. I just loved being around it. If it was the winter, I'd put my bag down, I'd walk down to the gym and go to varsity boys basketball practice. I'd grab a ball and I'd sit and watch. And then a lot of evenings, my parents would be supervising events. So I'd be back at school for a volleyball game or a soccer game, or I just felt like I was always around that kind of that school atmosphere, and I loved it. And I saw the impact that my parents were having on students and former students and just their community in general. And people coming up to me and talking about the impact that my dad or my mom had on them as students. When you're around that, it makes you want to be a part of it. So I never felt like I was pressured in any sense to go into teaching and coaching. Felt like I just loved being around it. I loved seeing what my parents were doing, and I wanted to have the same kind of impact on students, players, and people that you just get to be around as a public educator. So it made my decision pretty easy. I knew from a young age that I wanted to go into teaching, and then just a natural love for basketball and playing basketball, and the lineage that my family has in high school basketball coaching. It made that a pretty easy decision for me as well. Like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to go be a teacher and a basketball coach. And so when I graduated from high school, I went to Indiana University. My older brother, Brad, he was already there. He's 2 years older than me. Brad had already got started in coaching. He was in the same line of thinking that I was, and going into that teaching and coaching field. And I knew at IU I would be able to get my feet wet pretty soon as a coach. My first coaching role was a 7th grade assistant coaching job at Edgewood Junior High School. And so for the Center Grove connection, Edgewood,
Mustangs, right?
The Mustangs, that'd be where Coach Moore spent his days growing up with the football programs. He's an Edgewood graduate. But I did my student teaching there right before I graduated from IU. Anyway, my first job was there as a 7th grade assistant. The head coach for that 7th grade team was my older brother, Brad. So we got started coaching together there. It was a blast, and kind of haven't looked back since. Worked my way up to the varsity program with Edgewood. And after I did my student teaching, got my first job at Franklin Community. So I did 3 years there teaching high school math and JV boys basketball coach. So I had some Johnson County familiarity already. From Franklin, went to Hauser, where I was able to I did 1 year as the JV coach at Hauser, and then the last 4 as the head coach. So that's kind of the background that's got me to where I'm at now. Just so many people along the way that have had an impact on me being able to get to where I'm at now here at Center Grove. And none more important than, the family, my wife, Bree, the way she supported me through this journey. And we have a 9-month-old daughter, Juliet, and she's ridden the waves of the coaching life. And she has such a different seat in this, where she has to feel all the emotions of it, but doesn't get much control. But the way she supports me has been fantastic. And then with my dad and my brother, having 2 coaches that I can pick up the phone and call at any time, has made it a really special thing for me as well. When Brad and I started coaching together, my dad started referring to us as CM3 and CM4, for Coach Moorhead the third and Coach Moorhead the fourth. And so that's something Brad and I have really ran with. It means a lot to me, and I know Brad as well. We know that we're carrying on a legacy with that name. We're not the only Coach Moorheads, and we're trying to, like anything, you want to leave something better than when you found it. So I think that's really important to me. Leave that Coach Moorhead title in a better spot than when I found it. So if I have a son down the road or my daughter wants to become the next Coach Moorhead, we're developing a really cool lineage with that. And just blessed for the background that I've gotten teaching and coaching, and for all the people that have supported me in the journey to get to where I'm at.
Coach, I think the one question I have is, I'm a basketball guy through and through. That's the sport I played growing up. But I think it's pretty apparent in Indiana over the last 20 years, it's really become heavy in football. In Center Grove, in particular, has had a lot of success in football. You're going to compete with the football team, but how important is it? You mentioned getting into the middle schools and starting to build a program from the ground up to kind of rise the basketball program up to be on the same level as the Center Grove football program.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And not just even the football program, just think of all the programs at Center Grove that are state championship quality. Like it's to me, that's an environment you want to be in. You want to be immersed and be around success. The rising tide lifts all boats. And I feel like that's the case within an athletic department. I think Mr. Brunkel has done a great job of facilitating that championship culture. And we want to do the same thing with the basketball program. And there's been there's been sectional championships, Johnson County championships, but to allude to your point with football, I was a high school football player. I played 3 sports. I've always embraced the multi-sport athletes, and I loved whatever sport was in season. When it was in the fall, I was all in on football. When it was the spring, I was all in on baseball, and the winter was basketball. So I think really tried to emphasize that with our middle school guys that we can embrace that and be supportive of other sports. And I think with schedules and communications, there's things as coaches we can do to make it possible for students to be successful in multiple sports. And I think success breeds success, and winners win. So when you are around successful programs, and whether it's players playing directly in those programs or just being around it and supporting it, I feel like Center Grove gives you such a great opportunity to showcase championship level programs and pick the brains of coaches in those programs to see what works and how can we translate that into our basketball program to hopefully have the same level of success that so many other of our athletic counterparts have. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's a huge benefit. I think it's something that the basketball program can strive to reach here. And you do that through collaboration and communication with coaches and athletes. And we're excited to begin that process.
That's great.
So, Coach, kind of staying on this topic a little bit. I mean, again, I realize you've only been in the gig for a month and a half of any kind of seriousness. But as Adam talks about the football and the success of the football program, as someone myself who's been part of coaching at Center Grove in general for 18 of my 29 years, there's a feeling by a lot of kids that probably comes from the parents. Let's not be crazy on it. A lot of it's driven by the parents, that they have to specialize in baseball, or they have to specialize in basketball, or they have to specialize in football. So what are some of the things that you're trying to implement? I'm curious about this as a dad myself, who's got an 8th grader and hopefully wants to play basketball next year and give baseball a shot. What are some of the things you're trying to do with your structure of your summer stuff, even to try to make it more possible for that kid who wants to play baseball to do 2 sports, or that kid who wants to play football? Because I think there's a lot of stigma out there, unfortunately, that football and baseball go really well together, and basketball is kind of that odd one out because of the winter season. I obviously don't think that's true, and I know you don't, but what are you trying to do both from a communication standpoint as well as a framework standpoint to make that possible for kids to realize that, no, I can really do this?
Yeah, I think it starts with your scheduling and your communication with the coaches of those other sports, which that's been great for me so far. Talking with Coach Moore and Coach Hatfield, the other programs, like having an idea of, when their summer sessions are and making sure that we're going to schedule our basketball sessions to be at times that those multi-sport athletes can get to. And we were really successful with that in June, where we didn't have very many conflicts at all. We had some multi-sport athletes that didn't miss a single. We played 16 varsity basketball games in June, and pretty much all of our multi-sport athletes were able to be at all of them. So I think it's a scheduling thing. I think it's a big communication with the athlete, like understanding what's going on with them, and not giving ultimatums or anything like that in terms of, if you do have to miss something. I think just the communication piece is so important, and then providing opportunities that they can be at. So that's what we've tried to start doing in the off season. To the point of you have to specialize, or you have to do this, you have to do that, whether it's this sport or that sport. Like, I think there's so many cases of so many professional athletes now who were successful in multiple sports when they were in high school, that I think some of that just gets blown out of proportion when you talk about the specialization. Not that it's not important to strengthen your skills in your sports in the off season. Like, that has to happen. You can't only pick up a basketball in November and expect to be the best player you can if you're not touching it once the season ends in March. I think you have to find time to build in your skill work and your development, but a lot of that comes from us as coaches on making sure those opportunities are available. I don't see that as being something that's a deterrent or a factor that should be scaring kids out of playing basketball, especially now. I think we're trying to turn a new leaf in the basketball program of being really good at making sure we're giving kids the opportunity to be successful, even if they are very successful in another sport, and still supporting those guys who want to be all in on basketball. We have a large crew of guys that love playing basketball year round, and we're giving them the same opportunities and making sure that they're supported in that as well, whether it's playing AAU in the spring and in July or into the fall. There's so many great opportunities around this area to get better at basketball in the off season, outside of just your high school contact period workouts that we're given from the IHSAA. So, it's great to have guys that love being all in on basketball, but it's also great having guys who are really high level at other sports, and we're going to give them ample opportunities to develop and succeed. And certainly, I think communication is the forefront of that. Like I've already mentioned, between coaches of the other programs, athletes, parents, it all starts with excellent communication.
Couple kind of specific basketball related questions as far as on the court. So when you come into a new role like this, I guess first question, what is your kind of style of basketball that you like to play offensively and defensively? And then two, when you come into the new environment, do you look at the players that you have coming into the program before you finalize your style that you want to play on offense and defense, or do you believe you can kind of mold the players to it? And just kind of what's that been like so far for you?
Yeah, well, first, to answer your second question there, like as a high school coach, you are always developing your system around the skill, like the skill of the players that you got. You have to look at the talent that's within your program, the strengths of the players, and mold that system that's going to fit them. You're not trying to fit a system around players that it's not going to be successful. So for me, in the past years, defense has always started at the forefront, been an aggressive man-to-man defensive coach with still opportunities to mix in zones and change the pace of the game with some zone defense as well. But letting defense create offense, I think, is so important at the high school level. Getting out in transition, creating stops, and allowing those to lead to easy scores. Offensively, we've the last 2 years at Hauser been in the top 10 in scoring. We've had teams that have been able to get up and down the floor. We've developed some really high-level shooters, and I think that comes from selfless basketball. Passing up good for great shots. Really emphasizing solid shot selection. I've termed that. You begin with the end in mind. The kind of shots you want are, you want to get to the free throw line. You want to get clean finishes at the rims or at the rim or dunks. You want to get paint touch kickouts. You want to have great shot selection to lead to good offense. However that might look. We've had teams in the past that have been really successful with dribble drive motion and with Princeton scheme. But there's some other things you can do, just still valuing shot selection that might be a different style or scheme offensively. And then, being a smart team and valuing the basketball, I think is super important. And that overarches any scheme you want to put in. You have to value the basketball. You got to treat the ball as gold. In a possession game, you've got to be smart and understand that you can't allow live ball turnovers to happen and giving the opponent easy points. So, June has been great to just evaluate the strengths of our team and figure out how we're going to play this coming year. And we're able to have some good success here in June, and really excited about the group we've got. And we'll continue all fall molding our system around those players and making sure that we're going to put the best product on the floor that we can.
It's awesome.
Okay, Coach, for the tough question for you, I told you there wasn't going to be an interrogation process, but this one might be. Center Grove community has a lot of interesting hangouts for people to go to and enjoy, such as Tried and True is one of the places that people love to go to for the wings. What are some of the places that you've been able to check out in your short amount of time here, be it with the family or be it with the coaching staff or the team? What are some of those places that you've gotten to say, okay, I could definitely see this be one of those places I kind of check out and go to periodically?
I need to get out more. July is definitely, the wife and I have talked about July. We need to build in some more opportunities. June has been so busy that it's been tough. Brewburger was one that we hit there right on Stone's Crossing, which was great. The family I went to. And then my wife and I, we were able to get a babysitter. This was like last Friday, and go down to Bargersville. And I believe it was Upseller was the restaurant that was recommended to us. So that was one that was really good. So had some good food there. But hey, I'm all ears on recommendations in the Greenwood area. When I was working at Franklin, so my wife and I, really the first place that we lived, we had a home we rented in Greenwood. So this is the second tour, the second stop we've had. So we've got a little familiarity. You know, we've been to downtown Greenwood. The Reverie was a place that we always enjoyed going to. So we've had some stops in the past, but we're trying to get reacclimated to the area. So we're all ears on recommendations on that.
Well, Reverie is definitely one of them that around here. Of course, in Franklin, you got the Willard,
Sure.
Tried and True, Stone Creek, if you want the more upscale restaurant. Intelligy is a great breakfast place to go to.
Yeah, heard of Intelligy.
One of my favorites.
Of course, I'm saying all these names to try to get sponsors from them, but
That's smart. Yeah.
no, they're great places. I mean, they're definitely the staples for, I would say, many of us and some of our families to get a chance to go to. So, I mean, Adam, what are some of the places that you and the fam like to go to?
I get criticized a lot because I have got like 5 places that I really love to go. Like anytime Friday night rolls around, my wife's like, I don't want to go to any of the places that we've gone to every single week, but I'm going to tell you why I go to them all the time, because they're great. Intelligy, I love the Haven, which is over there in Hickory Stick.
The Haven. That was our first stop. That was a good spot.
That's a good one. Tried and True, as you mentioned. If you want kind of a, coaches hang out low key, just go get some wings or something, watch some games. Wings Etc. down on County Line Road is never too crazy crowded, but it's a nice place to get in there and you can have a conversation and have good wings and stuff. And of course El Beso in Bargersville, the Mexican restaurant on the corner.
Okay.
Don Cuervo's another one.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna have to check out, particularly if you love queso. I mean, like, it's got the best queso around. So. Lots of healthy stuff there at those Mexican restaurants, but you can't beat either El Beso or Don Cuervo for sure. So
very good. We'll get our list made. We'll start checking these off.
Yeah, that's right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was say I've got a question. Chris and I both have younger kids, like you said. His son is in 8th grade, and my son will be going into 7th grade. What are the type of players that you are looking for as kids that are in 7th or 8th grade now? And they've got goals to make the varsity roster someday in the future. What are the things that you look for? Obviously, basketball talent's there, but beyond that, what type of a character level, a person do you want to have within your program?
Yeah, I think in high school sports, that's still the main objective. Like, what we want to get out of our basketball program at the end of the day is developing high quality, high character young men, right? So guys that are always going to be accountable, right, for their actions. They're going to stay disciplined. You can count on them doing the right things on and off the court, in the classroom, being really respectful to coaches, respectful to teachers, peers, teammates, opponents. Those are some of the things that are non-negotiable for us within the basketball program. We want guys that are going to be super competitive, right? Like, just have the burning desire to win, that want to do whatever it takes for Center Grove to come out on top. Regardless of your stat line at the end of the game, the most important stat is us getting a W at the end of the night. So guys that are competitive, but then we also talk a lot about, that have competitive maturity. That means you're going to battle in practice, battle in the offseason. Iron sharpens iron mentality, but you're never going to let that cross lines. You're going to understand, we're all on the same team here. We're all part of Center Grove, so we're going to make each other better, but we're going to demonstrate some competitive maturity. And then, I think attitude and effort are two more things that players are totally in control of. Nobody else can control your attitude and your effort. That's in any sport, any class, any situation you have in life. I think we're really going to emphasize positive attitude. I'm somebody who's positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I don't deal well with negative attitudes or guys that are going to be down in the dumps when things aren't going their way. Like, you have the choice to remain positive and to make the best of your situation. And that's such a skill to have nowadays, not just in sports, but with anything that life throws at you. We got to have positive attitude and attack it head on, and then maximum effort at all times. Like, it should be a prerequisite of putting on the uniform that you were going to go your absolute hardest. We're going to win 50-50 balls. We're going to dive on the floor. We're going to get dirty, and we're going to be the hardest working, hardest playing team in the state of Indiana. Like, I think those things are so important to me, and none of them have anything to do with your ball handling, shooting, passing. None of those skill level things. It's all intangibles, but they're all things. I'd coin them as core values for us: our accountability, our respect level, how well we're competing, and then our attitude and effort. Those are the things that we'll be preaching on a daily basis. That'll be in front of the players, not just in our high school program, but in our youth program. So by the time these guys get to the high school level, they understand the standard. And I've been really impressed with how our upperclassmen have bought into that this summer and have already started modeling some of that, with the accountability piece. And just our attendance at our off-season workouts has been phenomenal. And the way the guys have gotten after it, and the attitudes, the efforts, all those things. So some things as a new coach, you're coming in, you don't really know what you're going to inherit on that. And I've been so encouraged by the way our high school players this summer have been demonstrating those things on a daily basis. So we're laying a really good foundation for the culture we're trying to build. And our younger players are going to see that and know what the standards are. So by the time they become high schoolers, they'll understand what's expected.
One quick follow-up, because I think it's really key to touch on here, is you mentioned the upperclassmen, the seniors kind of, showing up and buying in and stuff. And you've talked about in your career, you've gone from a couple different schools, you've experienced coming into new environments. How important is it that your seniors and your juniors, your upperclassmen, buy into what you're trying to implement and create program-wise?
Yeah, I think it's crucial that you want those guys to be the ones really setting the standard. And for your culture, for everything you're emphasizing, you want those upperclassmen to be echoing it and to be holding their peers accountable on it. And it's been awesome this summer. Guys like with our senior class, and Xavier Laney, Reese Oliver, Alec Heichelbeck, who have all played a lot of basketball over the years. Raj Jain, another one, who have been around the program, have come in and set a really good standard. They've worked incredibly hard here in June. They've had success on the court as a result of it. But I feel like they've also done a good job of trying to bring these younger guys along. Some guys who are looking to take the next step in their game. Grayson Alvey, who's making that sophomore to junior year jump, has started developing some of those same leadership qualities. Griffin Questenberry, another one who's looking to make the JV to varsity jump. So that junior, senior class, it's really important that they embody everything you want the younger players in your program to. And when you have your upperclassmen echoing those same messages, it just takes a different form and kind of gives a little more credence to what you're trying to preach. And I've been super excited about the way our upperclassmen have gone about handling themselves this summer. And they had a really successful summer because of it, and have laid a great foundation and ground level base for us as we head into the next phase of our off season.
Well, Coach, as someone who Adam knows, I have a few opinions out there periodically that are shared amongst the friends, and people ask me a lot, what do you think we need in the next coach? And I felt like it needed to be someone who was young. I think it's someone who, I think the biggest word that I said to a lot of people is not afraid to make relationships with the kids, develop those relationships with the guys, and not as much even high school, but in the middle school level to make them feel like they're valued as they get closer to high school. And I've heard lots of positive things about your background in that aspect. It's like the kind of transitions in my question for you. Why Center Grove? Why was this the place you decided to make that next step?
Well, first off, if you're just looking at a basketball perspective, the resources that a Center Grove has, the athlete pipeline, hearing the number of players that we have first through eighth grade in the Center Grove Boys Basketball League, which I think was towing around 800 last year. Like when you have that, breadth of kid playing basketball, it's super exciting knowing that you have that kind of a pipeline funneling into your high school program. And then all of the resources, all of the abilities to have what you want to make your program successful, I think is something that really sticks out here. And then like we've already touched on, just the success of the other athletic programs, it shows that it's possible and it can be done here. I think all those things go into a successful, job opportunity. And this was something that, every time I left our interview process, I just felt better about the next thing that was on the top of my list was what are the people like, the administrators. And I'd always, after an interview, I'd call my wife, I'd call my dad, and I just had this real positive feeling. Like I really enjoy talking to the people here and the decision makers and the people that were on the interview committee. Like they were, in such a kind of in lockstep in what I was thinking of in terms of what's going to make a successful program. And, the things that I value and kind of some of the things you've mentioned, building relationships with players and creating a culture of positivity that's going to create high quality, successful young men once they leave Center Grove. I just felt like all those resources and opportunities were here. And then, off the court, my wife works in Indianapolis. So this was an opportunity to make a move that helps her out and gets her a little closer to her work and closer to opponents we'll be playing from where her office is. I think that's a big thing. And having a 9-month-old daughter and wanting to raise a family in a place that, I feel, even before coming to Center Grove, always felt like, one of the first-class district, one of the most respected districts in the state. The opportunity to raise a family here was something that was really excited me. So, and then, after getting the job and just feeling like, all these things were validated with then meeting the players and already starting that process of getting to know the players and getting into the middle schools and meeting those players and coaches. And it just all has felt right, felt at home here since coming over kind of mid-April. But, it's something I didn't have like, okay, to touch on my background, I was blessed to have such a fantastic 4 years at Hauser. And it wasn't like, okay, when this 25, 26 years in, I'm out of here. I felt really good about where I was at, the people I was working with, the program that we had built at Hauser. And that's just a special place and a special community. And it's a 1A program, but we built it into, we were competing with 3A, 4A programs the last 2 years. We won 50 games the last 2 years. We've been on the doorstep of state championships each year, and just so proud of what we had built. But, when this opportunity came open, it was one that just checked so many boxes basketball wise and then, off the court wise for family. So it was something that I wanted to put my all into. And like I've already mentioned, every time I'd come up to meet with someone, I just felt better about the opportunity, and all the doors opened correctly and the timing works the way it did. And that's gotten me here and couldn't be more thankful and excited about being here.
So kind of building off that and coming to Center Grove and what you're looking for, I think people forget that Center Grove was just in regionals and semi-state, was it 3 years ago? I mean, they got the Newcastle 3 years ago, and that was not with TJD. That was after TJD had graduated.
Right.
That was with Jaden Bundy and Will Spellman. I'm going to go blank on Peyton Bird and some other guys, and all those guys I had over at North at one time. But that's not that far off from doing that, and kind of assess where do you think the program is? Obviously, it's going to take you a couple of years to get it to what you want for your system, but where do you see it as where you're at right now coming into it?
Yeah, I think you're correct in that, there has been a past success, kind of laid from what Coach Hahn has done over 12 years. I think 5 sectionals, multiple regionals, multiple Johnson County championships. So I think you're correct in that it's not like this is a program that was all broken down and hasn't been a winner. There is opportunities to develop the program and continue getting it to championship levels year in and year out. And I think for me, it's still very early in the process of evaluating, and I don't want to put any predictions on, what I think, we're going to win this number of games and this, but our goal is always going to be 1-0 in our next game, to be the most connected and most prepared team, and to be the hardest working team. Like, you do those things consistently, I'm confident that championship opportunities are going to be there at the end of the year. If you just focus on that next opponent, putting your all into winning the next game, you got to develop some chemistry off the floor, a connectedness amongst the group, an attitude of, no matter what is thrown at us, we're going to attack it head on, and we're going to be able to overcome it. And then the relentless work ethic. Like, you focus on those three things daily. That has always been my mindset approaching basketball. Like, those things will lead you to championship opportunities. And that's all we're asking for at the end of the year. Whether it's conference, county, or postseason, like we're looking for championship opportunities. So we're going to do that with this coming group. Like, this 26-27 team's the first one. We're laying the foundation for that. But then when you look at, we're just coming off a basketball camp, So we wrapped up Charlie Hughes over the weekend, but we had Monday through Wednesday, 1st through 8th grade basketball camp, and just seeing some of the talent that's coming up through the camp system, and even some guys that I knew couldn't be there because of church camp or other trips that were happening kind of later on in June this year. Like, it's just really exciting to know if you can get guys to buy in on those things I mentioned already. Then when you combine the talent and the skill level, it has an opportunity to be a winner. And I'm very confident that I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. And more importantly, I think we're going to set up an opportunity for players to become really high in their character, their success in the classroom, and their success beyond Center Grove in whatever capacity that is. Like, I think we have the resources to develop great young men when they leave the halls of Center Grove, whether that be going to college or right into the workforce, college athletics and basketball and other sport. I think we have the ability to really set a great foundation for those kids that are going to leave the program. And that's what excites me. And then, that creates those relationships that are they're going to be there forever. And I've already experienced that with some classes that have graduated at Hauser, like just being able to check in on kids, whether they're done with sports or done with school and right into the workforce. We have, 4 guys that are playing college basketball now, and getting to follow their careers has been super fun. So I'm excited to start building that here at Center Grove.
Coach, you mentioned you were a player as well. You grew up playing basketball. What's your favorite basketball memory to this point?
Favorite basketball as a coach, there'll be nothing better than the first, winning the first sectional. That was something that, my dad won a sectional in 1995 at South Dearborn. That's the school my brother Brad, he's the head coach at now. So Brad's going into year 2 at South Dearborn. He's back home. He had a stint. He was at Edgewood and at Martinsville as a JV coach. But my dad won the sectional at South Dearborn in 95, and it hasn't been done at South Dearborn since. It's 30 plus years where a team hadn't been able to win a sectional there. And Brad's trying to get over that hump at South Dearborn. But I can remember just seeing, I've seen the sectional championship video. I've seen the photo albums, of my grandparents on the floor with my dad, my mom. I wasn't born at the time yet, but Brad was. So just like, it's a big deal. You do that in the state of Indiana. And then my grandfather had won multiple sectionals at Versailles High School before it consolidated to South Ripley. So just that first time being up on the ladder, was just something really cool, something I'll never forget. It's you don't take it for granted, and having the opportunity to do it 2 years in a row. And then just the experiences of playing in semi-states the last 2 years. At Seymour 2 years ago, it's still to this day the loudest gym I've ever been in, the 1A South semi-state at Seymour. That's a memory I'll always carry. And we had a great battle with Orleans. But that's something that sticks out, playing in the Hatchet House in Washington last year, playing in a semi-state championship. So those are some memories as a coach. Back as a player, winning the Rivertown Classic down in Southeast Indiana. That's a big deal, the tournament between the schools down on the river, the Ohio River Valley. But I've been fortunate to, some experience I learned as a player. Now I've been able to take with me as a coach and try to create, better opportunities than maybe I was able to have as a player, but my players as a coach, now I'm able to afford them those opportunities. And that's been really fun because that's part of being young. Like, I remember being in their shoes. It wasn't terribly long ago when I was, going through the same trials and tribulations that a high school athlete does. So I feel like having those experiences fresh in mind has been able to help me guide and navigate our teams through some difficult things over the years and help get them to some really, really cool places. So just so many cool memories to reflect on. Hard to pinpoint one. I think I just gave you like 5 right there. So.
No, I love it. I think that, Chris, you mentioned your kind of list of hopeful things that you were hoping to have out of the new coach. And the one thing that I think I just want to compliment you on, you seem incredibly passionate and very genuine about it, which I think is going to go over really well with this community, with not just the students, but with the entire community as a whole. What are some other things that Coach Moorhead is passionate about as a person, just as you? What are some of the things you enjoy and you're passionate about?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that, and that's just kind of, I feel it's great to hear that. I just wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't want to do anything that I wasn't passionate about or didn't have a lot of enthusiasm towards. And coaching certainly one, but teaching's another. Like I love, being in the classroom and getting to know students as well and develop relationships with students in the classroom. And at Hauser, I was in a credit recovery role where I worked with some students that really struggled. Like school was tough for them. And seeing those kids walk across the graduation stage in May was always one of my favorite days of the year. So that's another piece that's something I'm passionate about, teaching and helping students overcome obstacles. And math is my background. So I think there's a lot of problem solving you can learn as a person that you get through math class, like trying to overcome obstacles and find solutions to problems. There's some real world application there. Spending time with family off the floor and just my wife and I, we have 2 golden doodles, and so we love taking the dogs on the walk. And becoming a father this past year has been just incredible. Like what a great perspective shift on the world and really bringing things into light. And just seeing my wife become a mother, it's just been so cool getting to spend time with family. And then we're both really connected to our families back home and love spending time with them as well. Certainly love to exercise and try to stay in shape and do things like that. My wife's a great cook, so we're always trying to find new recipes for her to make us. I'm pretty simple in the kitchen. I don't try to do too much. I know what I'm good at, and cooking's not always at the top of mind. But just being around family and having opportunities to enjoy memories making with them, it's been something I always enjoy doing.
That's great. That's great.
Okay, Coach. Interrogation is almost over. Just a couple more questions for you. Best piece of advice someone has ever given you in some way? Doesn't have to be career coaching, just in general. What's that piece of advice that you still have in the back of the mind when you're considering things one way or another?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have great mentors. Between my dad, Kevin Albright's my varsity assistant that's coming over with me from Hauser. He's a longtime administrator in Marion County and has a lot of breadth of experience. Those 2 guys always giving me great advice day in, day out. And I think, just being yourself maybe is probably the top of mind. Don't try to be somebody you're not. I think that's really important as a coach. I know who I am. I know how I want to get my information across. I know the best way to do that and how to communicate with players. I think players and teams can really see through it when you're trying to be somebody you aren't. Like I'm not trying to watch whether it's an NBA or college coach and see how they talk to their team or do this, that, and okay, I gotta pretend I'm this guy. No, I'm gonna be Trent Moorhead in front of the team, and I'm gonna get my information across in that way. I feel like I've always tried to stay true to that. I feel like it's always paid off for me because I think guys can see when you're passionate and genuine about something and it matters to you. They take on that mentality of, well, I don't want to let this guy down. He cares about me in a different way. And I want to. I never enjoyed playing for coaches that were the ones who were going to, threaten you with, you're getting pulled if you mess up here. There's different ways you can, hold kids accountable and get them to achieve, high standards that you want to see them achieve that are going to lead to team success. And I think creating that culture and that atmosphere of, hey, I'm doing this, so I don't want to let this coach down because he cares about me. I think that's something I've always tried to stay true to and creating that. And that's just trying to be myself. So never trying to be somebody that you're not. I think it's a great piece of advice that I was fortunate to heed when I was a young coach. And I've always tried to stay true to that.
Chris, did you have another one?
I have one more. Yeah, Adam, you have one more you want to give as well, or?
I'm good. You've answered everything. It's been nice just talking to you. And
So
hearing your passion.
your interrogation is over, is what you're saying.
All right.
He's passed the check. We're all good.
You've been a nice guy. Okay, Coach. My wife is from Lagodi, so I'm sure you have some connections to take it on Lagodi, or obviously know being in Hauser. You know the mystique of being in a small school where basketball dominates the community. And you mentioned your success and your dad's success and the small classes. Are you in favor of class basketball?
Ooh, man, that's one that I figured shot clock or something.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Yeah. It first with Lagodi, like sectional 62, that'd be that Lagodi, North Davies, Orleans, Bar
Reeve. We just depending on where Bar Reeve is. Yeah.
We ran right into that sectional 2 years in a row in the semi-state. So that's a little bit of a sore subject. But, I think it's, I've experienced now, whether as a coach or a player, all four classes. I was at Franklin in 4A, so I've seen that. At Edgewood, it was 3A. I played at South Dearborn, which was 3A. Played at South Ripley, which was 2A. My first 2 years, Hauser was 2A. My second 2 years, Hauser was 1A. So I've got the full scale of class basketball and I've experienced it. I think there are positives that come from it, and you're crowning more champions. I think that's really cool, the way that you're able to get more teams and communities celebrating at the end of a sectional weekend march. I think that's the plus. I'm sure that's what was the driving force around it. I didn't ever get to experience the true single class basketball system, but I've just heard so many stories. I know how my dad would answer. I know how my grandfather would have answered the question. And even my grandfather coaching at Versailles, I know would have been in favor of the single class, and just having that one culminating tournament at the end of the year for all schools. I think that was something that in Indiana can't be replicated, where high school basketball is so important. But I've fortunately been able to see the positives of the other side of it, and been able to be in all the classes and have success at a 1A and get to be crowned champions. And to be honest, I feel like the teams we've had the last 2 years, even if it was single class, we've been able to make some serious runs. So it's been pretty cool to be a part of it in that way. But it's a great question, one that doesn't get debated too much anymore, to be honest.
That's why I'm old. I still think of those things. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'm about 25 years older than I think Adam, and about 40 years older than you. So I'm
yeah.
No, you're just getting your driver's license, and Adam just got married. So anyway, I'm an old guy.
It'd be pretty cool to experience it, just for one of these 2 year reclass. They always reclass you every 2 years. They redo the counts. If one of them at the end of the next 2 years, hey, we're just going to do single class for 2 years and see how that goes. I'd be pretty curious to see how that'd pan out.
Or even do an Olympic type thing where once every 4 years at the end of the basketball season, you do a huge statewide tournament. Every team.
Yeah.
Just do something. I would love to see something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I see pros and cons to it for sure, and that's a different topic probably for the Blitz or something at some point in time, Adam. But if I was a coach of a smaller school, and you kind of referenced to this, I would love a shot to go up against those big guys to show what we're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I also think in a lot of the smaller schools, you play a different type of game than what a lot of the big schools do.
Sure.
But I think you also have the opportunity as a small school, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, that I think that there's a little more day in and day out passion with some of those players that are around it. I mean, just think about from the standpoint that you mentioned about being young and going to all the games. I mean, your 3A, 4A schools, a lot of those kids don't go to every game religiously like a lot they do in the smaller schools, and idolize in some cases those kids that are playing in high school. So
yeah, it's certainly a really cool thing to be a part of. It's kind of those small rural communities where, the basketball program is kind of the heartbeat of the town. And I'd love to see a Center Grove have the kind of, I don't think there's any reason why the students can't be as passionate about it here. I think it's just creating that atmosphere and creating that type of program that people want to support and see be successful. And that's what we're going to strive for, like getting the community rallied around the basketball program and the team. And it starts with the basketball program rallying around the other teams at Center Grove, and we'll certainly be doing that as well. And excited about that process getting started.
And I think you have that ability of making that happen, Coach, because, I mean, I was a high school student in the Center Grove High School football program. I'm a graduate of Center Grove, and so is Adam. For me, 92, I mean, it was an absolute joke. No disrespect, but, I mean, if we won a couple of games a year and won homecoming, it was a success. And what Coach Moore's been able to do, and the fans came because of that success. And I firmly believe you have fans and supporters in this community, which is one of the reasons I love this community so much, that they're going to want to come out and see you as you start it. And the word of mouth, because of the success and the way you present the team, I really think is going to bring the fans in to want to watch you and support you. So I'm excited for you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Like I said, I can't wait to get started. I think you're spot on. I think it starts with creating that product that the community and the students, teachers, everybody involved with Center Grove can rally around. And, the more we're able to get into the youth program and have our players be involved with the youth program, the staff, just immersing ourselves in the younger grades, I think all of that culminates in success for the high school program and support for it as well. So we're thrilled to be jumping in head first on that and excited for what November will bring.
Well, Coach, on behalf of myself and Adam Ross, I really appreciate you taking some time today to join us on the Center Grove Trojan Beat and kind of telling your story and what got you here and kind of what you want to make happen and success. And I know there's a lot of people supporting you and want to see that passion become reality. So good luck to you. And again, if there's anything we can do for you personally or on air, just let us know.
No, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you for having me on. I think it's so cool what you're doing and how you highlight not just Center Grove athletics, but all things Center Grove and in the community. It's very cool to be on today, and looking forward to following along with your site here all the time here.
Okay,
thanks a lot.
Chris Wood. Thanks, Adam, for joining us.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Center